about to install one of my Easy Rig shade systems. So this is Deanna, by the way, with Deanna's Designs. So these are the systems. The Easy Rig system is a system that I use for all of my Roman shades, whether they are the relaxed Roman or the flat Roman or hobbled shades, any of the different shades I use. I almost always use these same systems. So when you get your system, your Roman shade, it will be on this particular head rail. So it won't look like this. This is the Velcro, and it will be attached to this. So basically, it will have this bead chain, but the bead chain will be all the way pulled up, and there will be this little tie loop through here to secure it, just so that it doesn't come down, so it stays all the way up during shipping. So there are two ways. I'm on the floor because this is where I try everything out in my studio room. So this is where I put the shades up before I send them out and try them out and make sure everything's working. This is kind of the only flat space that I have. So I put them up here, plus I can also take pictures against this backdrop. This is a photo backdrop from Peak Prints on Etsy, so shout out to them. Anyway, so there's two different ways that you can install them. So when you ordered it, you either wanted it to be outside of your window, which would be above a window, or you wanted it to be inside of your window, which is inside your window frame. So I'm going to kind of show you the two different ways. You can also do it on a door frame, and that would be considered the same as an outside mount, because there's two different types of brackets that you use. So these are the two different types of brackets. Generally, when I send a package out, it should have a few things. So if you don't have these things, let me know right away. I send it out in two different little envelopes, usually, two different little things. There's one little package that has 3 little screws, a little piece of paper from Rowley Company. Rowley is the people who manufacture these little cord loops, and they have instructions on how to install this particular bead chain and this little guy, and I'm going to show you that in just a second. So that's all together. And then I also send out the brackets with screws along with the instructions on how to do that. So I'm going to walk through how to do that right now. I'll try to zoom in on this, but for the outside mount, for anything that goes on a door or above a window, the brackets are L-shaped. And I'll see if I can go back and zoom in on this in a second. But they go like this. And the way that they go in would be into your wall like this, and your screws will go in these 2 holes. You can space them out. Usually there will only be 2, but if it's a very long head rail, there might be 3 and even 4 if it's like, say, 70 inches or something really, really wide. So you can space them out. The way that they go, the way that they fit on this head rail is, I'll show you without putting it in yet. This has a little catch here. So you put it on with this part forward. And I have some on here already. So if you play with it first, you can see if you push this in, it clips right into there. So like these are already installed. I can only fit one on this particular one, but I'll do the other one in a second. So when you go to install your head rail, all you have to do is tilt it slightly back, catch that hook on this first little lip, push the spring, and then push the back part of it up, and it catches on. Now obviously there would be two, so it would be caught on more. And then if you need to release it, you do the same thing. You push it back and go down. Now the trick to that is that when you're putting them, wherever you're putting them, say you're putting them on your wall above your window, you want to make sure that they're parallel and not skewed somehow, because they're not going to clip on properly if they're not parallel. If one's a little bit crooked, or so just make sure they're the same height. Generally, you won't need either time, either if you're doing these or the inside mount. You're not going to need to secure your screws with drywall stabilizers, because if you're going above a window, usually it's 1 or 2 inches, and that usually is framed out. So it's not usually just drywall behind there, it's usually framed out with 2x4s. So usually you're not going to need the drywall, mine went blank, but I'll think of it in a second. Usually you just need the screws. If you find that they're loose and they're coming off, then you will need to go back and do the drywall stabilizers. So, but let me show you how we do a inside mount. So let's say that this is the inside of your window frame. So here's your window, and this is inside. So those look like the same little brackets, except they're just flat. They don't have this back end. So with the spring going toward you, you're going to screw those with both of them with the springs toward you into the top of your window. Now one thing to consider is how far forward, if you have the space in your window, if your window is deep, how far forward do you want your shade to be? Because if you have several inches, you might want your shade to sit back some, or you might want it to sit forward some. Keeping in mind, this little spring is going to end up going back. So you're not going to see it pushing forward like it is right now. It's going to squeeze in. But just make sure, again, that they're parallel. So you might want to measure, you might want to, if it comes to the edge, that's pretty easy, or if it sits back on the back, that's pretty easy. But then you're going to take your screws. There's 2 little holes in the back, and you're just going to screw those into your window frame. So I'm going to do that here. I'm going to put them just kind of parallel with the front. Okay, so I'll pause for a second so you don't have to watch me go through the whole motion of putting those in, of screwing those in, but I got these 2 screwed in. I took one of the other ones out just so I would have room to have both of the flat ones in. So this again is for an inside mount, so these are the flat ones. And just for the record, you want the flat part of the bracket to go against the wood or lay flat against the window frame or the window sill up against there. So it's flat against flat, and then the screws go here toward the back. Now in this instance, I went ahead and had the little spring coming out just a little bit from the frame, which is what we're saying this is our window frame, and so, just so that you could see how this snaps in. So this again would be where your shade is hanging, and if the shade for some reason is a little bit in the way, if it's up here and it's kind of bothering you, you can pull it away some, because this is just Velcro, and then readjust it and put it back on. Just don't take anything out from under here, because this is the mechanism and you don't want to mess the mechanism up where it rolls into there. So, but you can easily just pull this off a little bit and then readjust that back onto the Velcro. So you're going to go, as I said, we're going to lean in a little bit here to make sure these little tiny hooks get hooked onto this upper edge here. Once you have those hooked on, then you push back, which will push back these little springs. So make sure you have them both hooked in, push back, and then push up, and you'll hear it lock in. and then you're very secure, and just pull on that. Now obviously my board is not secure, but the locks here are secure. So just make sure that they're both locked in. You'll hear it click and you'll know. And if not, then again you can just push it out, unlock it, and then do it again until you have both of those locked in and secure. So once you have that in place, then you can take your little traversing mechanism here. If you have your little tie cord, you can pull down on this until it extends all the way, so it's at the bottom of your loop, which is where you want it, and then you can start to install this. Now, since I don't have a real window in here, I can't install it, but I can show you the basics of how you do that. You will have these 3 little screws, and I'm going to use my teeth here, not good, and kind of show you. You'll either do an inside mount, which is this long, flat, little clear plastic one, or for an outside mount, you'll use the smaller plastic one. Usually I just send whichever mount you're using, so you'll usually just have one of these. The instructions, again, are on this little piece of paper, and it's fairly self-explanatory, or not self, but explained by that, but this is already done, this part, so the instructions for the whole thing are there, so you don't need them all. But this little part here comes down. I'm not sure if you can, how well you can see that, but the little tiny screw, you'll need, it's easier I think just with a regular screwdriver, a Phillips head, and the little tiny screw, you'll need to take this tie out. The little tiny screw is going to go into that little opening, but you'll want to pull it down so that it has tension. So you don't want to start screwing it until it has some tension in it. And then once it has tension, you screw that into one of these 2 devices, which go on the other end. So I'll show you here with this one. So I'm not sure how well that can be seen on the video, but this will go on the other end. That you're going to pull down for tension. There's a little, very faint little line there. You screw that tight. It still gives way right now. And then what that does is that when you go to install it, which I'm not going to do fully, but what you want to do is pull it down to this little line. There's 2 little holes here, and then you'll screw, you'll give it enough tension, and then you'll take your bigger screws and you'll screw that right into your window frame or your wall. And this won't work here, but I'll show you a little bit. That's what gives it enough tension to roll this so that it's a continuous loop, and that's what keeps it from just hanging, and also so kids or animals or whatever can't get to it, it stays secure that way. So anyway, if you have any questions, of course, give me a shout, combo me, and I'd be happy to help you with anything. Thanks so much.